So, welcome students for the determination of surface tension. Last time we have seen the determination of surface tension by stalagmometric method. Then the difference between physical properties and chemical properties. Then the different types of physical properties as additive, constitutive, additive character get modified due to constitution, then the colligative properties, and in detail we have seen the surface tension property. Here now we are going to see how the surface tension is measured. There are several methods for the determination of surface tension. For example, capillary rise method, stalagmometer method, that means the drop weight method and drop number method, Wilhelm plate or ring method, maximum bulk pressure method, methods analyzing shape of hanging liquid drop or gas bubble, and dynamic method. And for your study there are only two methods, and these methods are very easy one, simple one. Last time we have seen the stalagmometric method in the determination of surface tension. We have seen the drop weight method as well as drop number method, and now we are going to see the capillary rise method. Here a capillary rise method, this is the oldest method used to determine the surface tension. A consequence of surface tension appearance at the liquid gas interface is moving up of the liquid into a thin tube, that is the capillary, which is usually made up of glass. This phenomenon was applied for determination of surface tension. For this purpose, a thin circular capillary is dipped into the tested solution. If the interaction forces of liquid with the capillary walls, that means the adhesion forces, are stronger than those between the liquid molecules, that means the cohesion forces, the liquid wets the walls and rise in the capillary to a defined level, and the meniscus is a hemispherically concave or convex, depending on the nature of the liquid in which we have dipped a capillary tube. Remember that a simple method is here. We have to introduce a capillary in a liquid, and the due to interaction forces of liquid with capillary walls, that means adhesion force, when it is stronger than the cohesion force, that means the interaction force between liquid molecules, then the liquid wets the walls and rises in the capillary to a certain level, and depending on the nature of the liquid, here a meniscus, either concave or convex meniscus, we have observed in the capillary tube. Here in the opposite situation, the forces cause decrease of the liquid level in the capillary below. That means when the cohesion forces are greater than the adhesion forces, a opposite picture we have seen. And in the capillary, we have a semi-spherically convex portion here. Here in this first case, here it is a liquid and we have dipped a capillary tube, and this is a concave meniscus, and this situation appears when adhesive forces are greater than cohesive forces, and adhesive force means the force between liquid molecules and wall of the capillary tube, and in this case the cohesion forces are greater than the adhesion forces, and in this case we have a semi-spherically convex here portion in the capillary tube. If the cross-section area of capillary tube is circular and its radius is sufficiently small, then the meniscus is semi-spherical. Along the perimeter of the meniscus, there acts a force due to the surface tension present, and that force it is given by here 2 pi r gamma into cos theta, where r it is the capillary radius, gamma it is the surface tension, and theta it is the wetting contact angle. Then the force F1 in the above equation is equilibrated by the mass of liquid raised in the capillary to the height h, that is the gravity force F2. In the case of non-wetting liquid, it is lowered to a distance h. Therefore, we can write F2 it is equal to pi r square h into dg, where d is the liquid density in gram per centimeter cube. Actually, the difference between the liquid and the gas densities, and g is the acceleration of gravity. In equilibrium, the liquid does not move in the capillary. That means F1 it is equal to F2, and hence we can write here 2 pi r gamma into cos theta it is equal to pi r square into h into d into g. Therefore, we can write gamma it is equal to r into h into d into g upon 2 cos theta. If the liquid completely wets the capillary walls, the contact angle theta is 0 degree, and cos theta means cos 0 it is always 1. Therefore, in such a situation this equation reduces to gamma it is equal to r into h into d into g upon 2, because the capillary walls here the contact angle theta it is equal to 0. Therefore, cos theta it is equal to 1, and we get this equation gamma it is equal to r h dg upon 2. Then if the liquid does not wet the walls, that means for example mercury in a glass capillary, then it can be assumed that theta it is equal to 180 and cos theta it is equal to -1, as the meniscus is lowered by the distance minus h. Equation 5 is 5 gives a correct result. Then on the concave side of the meniscus, the pressure is P1. The mechanical equilibrium is attained when the pressure values are same in the capillary and over the flat surface in the case of wetting liquid. The pressure in capillary is lower than outside it. That means P2 is less than P1. Therefore, the meniscus is shifted to a height h when the pressure difference, that is delta P, it is equal to P2 minus P1, is balanced by the hydrostatic pressure caused by a liquid raised in the capillary tube, and we can say that delta P it is equal to P1 minus P2 it is equal to delta D into G into H, and this is the diagram which shows here the balanced pressure on both sides of the meniscus. And here we can calculate the gamma. It is equal to R into H into D into G upon 2. That means by means of capillary rise method we can find the surface tension by using this formula. And in the exam there are problems based on determination of surface tension. Then for last time we have seen the drop volume method with the help of stalagmometric method. And you know the stalagmometer, it is nothing but a pipette provided with a glass bulb at the middle, and simply we have to determine the number of drops formed, and this is the construction of the stalagmometer here. And according to the Tate's law, when the weight of the drop, that means W, it becomes equal to 2 pi r into gamma, then the detachment of the drop takes place. And by using this formula for liquid understudy and reference liquid, we can find the surface tension. Here we have seen that method. Then we are going to see the next physical property, and the name of the next physical property, it is the viscosity. Here viscosity property, it is related with the flow of liquids. That means the liquids which flows readily on plane surface or glass surface are called as mobile liquids, and the liquids which do not flow readily or the liquids which flows slowly on the plane surface, that liquids are called as viscous liquids or non-mobile liquids. Here the viscosity, it is one of the physical property, and it raises the flow of liquid. The property of liquid which determine the rate of flow of liquid is called as viscosity of the liquid. Remember, the property of liquid which determine the rate of flow of liquid is called a viscosity of a liquid. Here, let us examine a liquid flowing on a glass surface. Here in this diagram, here we have a number of liquid molecular layers. They are flowing on a plane surface. This is the first liquid molecular layer. This one is the second. This one is the third. And this one is the fourth. And in this diagram, it is clearly shown that as the distance of the liquid molecular layer from the stationary surface increases, the rate of flow of the liquid molecular layer continuously goes on increasing. Here it is shown in this diagram. Here the explanation of this diagram, the molecular layer in contact with the stationary surface has zero velocity. Then the successive layers above it move with the increasing higher velocities in the direction of the flow. Now consider two adjacent moving layers of the liquid. Let these may be separated by a distance x. Therefore, x, it is equal to distance between two layers, and suppose phi, it is the velocity difference between two layers, and let F, it is the force of friction. Then the force of friction in between the two liquid layers, it is directly proportional to distance of separation and inversely proportional to the velocity difference between the two liquid layers. And this equation we can write as F, it is equal to neta into x upon phi. That is, eta is known as coefficient of viscosity, that is the proportionality constant, and it may be defined as the force of resistance per unit area required to maintain the unit velocity difference between two layers of a liquid which are at unit distance apart from each other, and the unit of viscosity or neta, it is a poise denoted by letter P, or centipoise or millipoise or dynes per centimeter square, and the SI unit of viscosity, it is Newton per meter square into second or Pascal into second. And remember, one poise, it is equal to 1 gram per centimeter per second. Then the reciprocal of coefficient of viscosity is called as fluidity. That means phi, it is equal to 1 by eta. The fluidity is a measure of the ease with which a liquid can flow, and viscosity of liquid decreases with increase in temperature. Remember that the viscosity of a liquid, it decreases with increase in temperature, and the reciprocal of coefficient of viscosity is called as fluidity. It is denoted by phi, and it is equal to 1 by eta, that is coefficient of viscosity, and fluidity is a measure of the ease with which liquid can flow. Then here the determination of viscosity. Our next point, it is the determination of viscosity by Ostwald's viscometer. Here viscometer, it is a one instrument. With the help of viscometer we can determine the viscosity. At first, see the construction of viscometer. This instrument is known as Ostwald's viscometer, and Ostwald's viscometer, it is nothing but a U-shaped hollow glass tube provided with two glass bulbs. One glass bulb, it is situated at the base of the U-tube, and the another glass bulb, it is situated at the top of the U-shaped glass tube, and one bulb, it is slightly bigger than the other, and the one arm of the U-tube, it is slightly wide, and another arm of the U-tube, it is narrow, and this narrow end or narrow side of the U-shaped glass tube, it is provided with rubber tubing and a capillary. Here this glass bulb, it is associated with a capillary, and this is the construction of the Ostwald's viscometer. I will repeat again. Here the Ostwald's viscometer, it consists of U-shaped glass tube having two bulbs. The left arm is essentially a capillary with two calibration marks, here marking above mark and the below's mark, and the right hand arm is wide, and it is nothing but a pipette shaped, and it has a bulb. Here it is. This is the bulb at the base. This is the construction of the Ostwald's viscometer. Then how we can determine the viscosity by this Ostwald's viscometer? Here the coefficient of viscosity of a liquid can be determined with the help of Pauli's equation. And Pauli's equation, it is here eta, it is equal to P pi r raised to 4 into T upon 8 VL. I repeat, eta, it is equal to P pi r raised to 4 into T upon 8 VL, where phi, it is the volume of the liquid flowing through capillary in time t, and P is a applied pressure, and R it is a radius of the capillary, L it is the length of the capillary. The experimental measurement of P, R, L and V offers considerably difficult. Hence, it is difficult to find the absolute coefficient of viscosity neta from the Pauli's equation. Thus, the viscosity of liquid is determined with respect to that of water by Oster's viscometer. Here, the experimental procedure of the Oster's viscometer for the measurement of viscosity. A definite volume of a liquid under examination is filled into this bulb, C bulb of the viscometer. This liquid is sucked through the left arm slightly above the upper marking of the bulb. Then the liquid is allowed to flow back, and the time of flow of liquid from the marking, that is from A to B, is noted or recorded. Then the apparatus is cleaned up and the process is repeated for another liquid with water whose viscosity is known. And the calculations here, how to calculate the viscosity. It is observed that the pressure P depends on first factor, here it is height of liquid level in the two arms. Here the liquid level here in this bulb and the liquid level here in this bulb. This height, it is the H height, and second factor density of the liquid, and the third factor here it is acceleration due to gravity. Here the it is observed that the pressure P depends on height of the liquid level in the two arms, then density of the liquid, and third factor gravitation, acceleration due to gravity, that is the G. Then according to Pauli's equation, here as for first liquid we can write neta 1 it is equal to Hg pi into R raised to 4 upon 8 Pl into d1 T1, where d1 it is the density of liquid first and T1 time flow of liquid first, and for second liquid here neta 2 it is equal to Hg pi R raised to 4 upon 8 Pl into d2 into T2. Therefore, taking the ratio of above two equations, we get neta 1 by neta 2 it is equal to d1 T1 upon d2 into T2. When neta 2 is known by measuring densities and time of flow of the two liquid, neta 1 of the first liquid can be calculated. That means here from all these quantities, if we know neta 2, d1 T1 and d2 T2, we can find the neta 1. And advantages of this method, it is a very convenient apparatus for determination of viscosity. Then viscosity at a different temperature can be determined, as viscometer can be easily suspended in a thermostat, and this is quite easy method for the determination of viscosity. Here once again I will repeat the property, that is the viscosity. Here after studying the surface tension physical property, what is the surface tension, how it arises, That means what is the phenomenon behind the surface tension. And you know, the unbalanced forces at the surface of liquid, it gives rise to a physical property, and that physical property is the surface tension. Then how the surface tension is determined we have seen, and our today's next physical property, it is the viscosity. And you know, viscosity, this physical property, it is related with the flow of liquid, and viscosity resists the flow of liquid. Here the property of liquid which determine the rate of flow of liquid is called as viscosity of a liquid. And every liquid, it flows on a plane surface in the form of liquid molecular layers, and the rate of flow of liquid molecular layers, it increases with the distance from the stationary surface. That means when the friction between liquid molecular layer and the plane surface, it increases, the flow rate of the liquid molecular layer, it goes on increasing. And here the consider any two adjacent moving liquid molecular layers, and let they are separated by a distance x, and if v is their velocity, that means the rate of flow of two liquids, and f, suppose it is the force of friction, then the force of friction, it is directly proportional to the distance between two liquid layers and inversely proportional to the velocity difference. And we can write this equation as F, it is equal to neta into x upon phi, where x, it is the distance between two liquid layers, and phi, it is the difference between velocities. And this neta, it is the proportionality constant, and it is known as coefficient of viscosity, and it is defined as the force of resistance per unit area required to maintain unit velocity difference between two layers of a liquid which are at unit distance from each other. And the unit of viscosity, that is the CGS unit, poise, denoted by letter P, or centipoise or millipoise, or dynes per centimeter square. And the SI unit of viscosity, it is Newton per meter square into second. It is also called as the Pascal into second, or kilogram per meter into second. And the reciprocal of coefficient of viscosity is called as fluidity, denoted by letter phi, and phi, it is equal to 1 by neta. The fluidity is a measure of ease with which a liquid can flow, and viscosity of liquid decreases with increase in temperature. Then the measurement of viscosity by the Ostwald's viscometer. Here, this is the construction of Ostwald's viscometer, and simply you have to take a liquid under study in this bulb. Then this bulb, it is provided with a rubber tubing. With the help of rubber tube, the liquid is sucked a little above the upper mark, and then the time flow is recorded for the liquid, and by putting these values in the Pauli's equation, we can determine the viscosity by using this formula. Here, as all these factors h, g, pi, r raised to 4 upon 8VL, these are constant factors for the viscometer. We can take the ratio here and we will get neta 1 by neta 2. It is equal to d1 t1 upon d2 t2, and substituting these values we can find the viscosity of the liquid. And next time we will see the next physical property, and the name of that physical property is the refractive index or Snell's law. Thank you.